Hello, my name is Micaela Muldoon with the Art Gallery of Windsor, and I'm here today with Amahl Hazelton from Moment Factory, which is a digital media production company based in Montreal. So Amal's going to talk to us today about what a digital project is and some of the follow-up questions that cultural institutions like art galleries and museums might have, or that any company might have if they want to engage in a digital project themselves. So thank you for being here today, Amahl. It's great to have you. And would you say a couple words about yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Amahl Hazelton, and I'm a producer. I've been a producer with Moment Factory for the past 13 years, and I'm currently working on strategy and development in our cultural and educational division, which really serves museums, art galleries, zoos, aquariums, etc., around the world, cultural sites, historic sites, to attract new audiences and engage them in new and meaningful ways.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're going to start off with our questions for you today. And question number one pertains to Moment Factory more specifically. So we want to know, what kinds of projects do you find are inspiring the creative and technical staff in your organization lately?
Well, our logo is "We do it in public," and what that really represents is bringing people together in a meaningful way in some kind of public or semi-public place to have an experience. And for us, what's really inspiring, and we see an explosion of creativity out there in the world and in our own studio around the convergence of online platforms and on-site experiences. So it's not just in a gallery or in a museum. It's not just online and on your mobile phone or on your computer. But we're starting to see this convergence where mobile devices, for example, are extensions of the person, a group's self. And they're using those devices not as the primary object of their attention, but as a means to interface with or control or influence an on-site experience. So bringing people into the public realm, bringing people into cultural institutions. We can use all of these different tool sets that we've been building over the past decades and really activate people and activate spaces and bring them together in super exciting ways. It's the next 10 years is extremely thrilling what's coming.
Well, I can't wait to see what else is coming. So Moment Factory is obviously a very unique company. Not a lot of companies out there like Moment Factory. So you have a very different perspective on audiences for digital projects than would an institution like a museum or an art gallery, most of which are small time and kind of struggle to find an audience or to build an audience upon their existing one. So we would like to know, how would you identify and target audiences for a digital project? And I know it kind of pertains specifically to the project. That'll change the answer, of course. But do you find that there are any generalities with that?
Well, I think in general, digital projects, and that means a lot of different things to different people, can be incredibly inclusive and participative and accessible, and there's a host of ways that is enabled by the technologies and the solutions of digital installations and projects. What that means is that essentially these kind of experiences can be designed for peoples of all ages and all abilities and backgrounds, and having that world open up for cultural and educational institutions is an amazing but sometimes daunting task, because these incredible institutions that have developed over centuries or even millennia, some of them have a tremendous experience in-house about designing exhibits and conserving artifacts and displaying them and presenting them to the public. But the public now, and not just millennials and the famous Gen Zs and stuff like that, but my grandma is online on Facebook and stuff like that. People of all ages and abilities are looking to interface with content and interface with their experiences, and not just be condemned to be spectators. They want to be participants. They want to be actors, and we can really create things that are accessible and enjoyable for people of all ages and abilities. So in terms of target audience, most cultural and educational institutions are trying to grow their audience base. And, increasingly, the old traditional formats of exhibits and experiences have the cohort in the population that still appreciates and attends those kind of experiences is starting to reduce. And so exploding that and bringing in more of, let's say, senior age groups, but also attracting completely new audiences who never necessarily would have thought of going to an art gallery or museum or something like that. These kind of tools and solutions and approaches can really engage in a very meaningful way all kinds of new audiences, because they're used to being part of the content conversation, let's call it that. So
now a lot of institutions like museum and galleries, they might kind of be behind the times digitally. It does take a while to come up into this, especially since digital technologies are constantly changing, possibilities are constantly evolving. And like you said, it's daunting. And a lot of institutions might be wondering if it's worth it to step out of their comfort zone and try a digital project for themselves. So could you tell us a bit about the return on investment of introducing a digital arts and culture product?
Yeah, the return on investment really has to do with obtaining results from investing in a certain action or product or installation. And what I would say is that, for one thing, we mentioned already that many of these cultural educational institutions have been doing a tremendous job curating and developing exhibits within a traditional framework. They need to reduce the risk of failure or improve the risk of success. And that means that they need to collaborate, and they know that. They do not have all of the skill sets, and there's a lot of them you require to do a digital project. No single institution can invest in building up the capacity in-house to successfully design, produce, and then operate digital projects. So institutions know they need partners in conceiving and delivering these next generation experiences, digital installations, and by finding ways to collaborate with creative technological resources that are out there is extremely important. That reduces risk. Therefore, your investment of trying to do something is better protected. Now, on the return side of the investment, we've seen over the past decade that there are important key performance indicators, let's call it KPIs, that organizations have in mind when they're investing, but they don't measure them. So the return on investment is money in, money out, right? But if you look at it more holistically, money in and what comes out, one of the things that we've been saying for quite some time, the last dozen years, is we really have to look at how can we measure the ROE, the return on emotion, the return on experience, the return on engagement, the return on education, and what are the KPIs that we can use to measure success of an expanded model of ROI. And there's really 5 objectives that all destinations share, and whatever category of destination you might be in. And those, if you on a very high level, every organization, every destination wants to be top of mind. They don't want to be the seventh art gallery on your to-do list. They want to be number one, TripAdvisor number one. And so there's a lot of things that you can do when you're designing a digital project that can be twisted, tweaked, designed to achieve a positive outcome and return on that objective, on being higher in the public's imagination when they're making a decision about visiting. So, number one, top of mind. Number two is you need to have a call to action. You want to have more visitors. So just being famous with nobody coming to the door or nobody coming into your district you need the project to actually attain those outcomes, that you've got more visitors. Now, third is you want them to spend some time. You want dwell time. You want them to spend part of their day and not just 2 minutes, parachute in, take a picture, and they're gone, but you want them to be engaging with your site. So dwell time. You want more visitors and you want them to spend more time. Fourth, you've really got to conceive your installation to be shareable. I've seen incredible installations that are almost impossible to take a photo or a video of, and therefore it's very difficult for people to document their love of what they experienced, and even more difficult for them to share it. And the fifth element is sharing, is how are you conceiving your installation so that it's capturable, that people can capture their love, but then they can share it. And in that fifth part, that leads out into this virtual circle of all of these people, individuals of all ages and abilities who are enjoying your experience, are capturing it and sending it out into the universe so that it generates more attention and places your organization higher, your destination higher in that. So what are the strategies really, and what are the metrics of how we can measure that? This gives a roadmap to setting your objectives and then measuring those key performance indicators so that you have a larger vision of what the ROI of a project like this is. So, depending how you measure it, we've had projects where we've put, $1 million into a project, and that project has had 5, 8, 11, $14 million worth of earned media coverage. That's coverage that organization would have otherwise had to pay for. But because the vision of the project and how it was communicated was exceptional and engaging, it had that benefit, which is a measurable benefit for the organization.
Yeah, you know what? I think those are all factors that institutions inherently know are important deep down, but a lot of the times they overlook it in the face of more conventional ROI factors. So thank you for outlining those points. And in that same kind of vein, given that there's so much benefit to going digital, is there a cost for a museum or gallery or other institution to not going digital?
Well, certainly you'd run the risk of perhaps not attaining those objectives, not being top of mind, not having more visitors, not having them spend more time. And all of those factors can be converted by organizations into either revenue generation if they wanted to support their bottom line, or into some of the other metrics that allow them to defend their budgets and program funding, either to government programs or to philanthropists. We see a lot of attention coming from a new generation of donors and philanthropists who've made their prosperity in the new economy and want to give back, but they're not necessarily ready to support initiatives that are not engaging with the cohorts and populations, audiences that they see themselves being a part of.
Excellent. Thank you for the words of wisdom for every possible cultural institution out there or anyone else who is considering going digital. It's becoming more and more convincing. So do you have any tips for launching a digital project and how to get the initial hype going?
Sure. And I'll go back to those 5 objectives, maybe again as well, is the hype is about inciting an emotion. You want to inspire your future audience to want to experience and engage with the project that you're delivering and offering them. And there's some very basic tools to that. One is be a part of that community. So being engaged via social media, it might seem trite to be saying, what are you doing with your Instagram community? What are you doing with your Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these different communities who are eager to engage with the institutions and the projects that they love. So having a voice and being part of that community is a first step, because if you've got no way to reach people, you can do everything you want and you're not reaching them because you're not, using the channels of communication that are open to you. After that, the real tips are that when you're documenting the project or even conceiving your marketing materials for it, it's not the details that matter. It's the emotion of what the individual is going to experience that needs to be captured and conveyed. And that means that it's a drawing or it's a photograph of somebody really falling in love with and enjoying and engaging with the digital experience that's being proposed. And so not just a bunch of bullet points about what the project is and how great it is and how much it costs, et cetera. Those are details people will find, but the hook is the emotion. And you need to put them in the shoes of the person experiencing it. And that's the tip, that's the challenge that you're, and then ultimately in documenting a project, it is, and continuing to maintain a buzz around it, it is capturing that emotion of people being in the experience, and then, and people will automatically put themselves in that position and say, I want to feel that emotion. I want to try that. I want to do that too. And that's the biggest tip. Now, if you start going into under the hood of that, there's even more things you can do when you're creating an installation. One thing that I've seen everywhere in cultural and educational institutions is incredible exhibit, people enjoying it like crazy. But when you take a picture of it, you got no idea where that project is. You have no idea what it is. You just see people doing something. But the image itself, when you're capturing that, is there some way that you can have your organization, that their brand or the hashtag of that installation is readable within the images that we capture? So I'm capturing a great moment. Embedded in there, is there some way that I can know it is in Windsor, for example, or it is this is the hashtag of that particular installation? Because when it's embedded and people take an image, then when they share it, they see it in the image and they're adding that hashtag, and it becomes part of a conversation that can be followed and amplified and creates that buzz. Otherwise, it's out there in the ether and it's not connecting to your destination. It's not connecting to that specific project. So those are 2 tips.
Thank you. That's very important, very great. And you know what? It's equally important a lot of the time, in addition to those do's and those tips, is the don'ts, what you're not supposed to do. So over the course of your work with Moment Factory, do you have any experiences, or do your coworkers have any experiences where you've learned, like, okay, this is not this should be avoided in the future, or we tried this and it didn't quite work. Anything like that you could share with us?
Sure. There's too many for the time that we have together. But I think at its highest level, my biggest don't and word of caution to anybody considering a digital project is don't rush to decide what the technology component is before you decide what the experience is going to be. The only thing that matters to your audience is the emotion and the experience that they obtain in engaging with your site. And all of the black plastic in the world, as I call it, all of the audio visual equipment and projectors and LEDs and computers and software, all of that is only a necessary enabling tool to enable content and enable an experience. And at the end of the day, there would be nothing interesting about these if all it was a very expensive piece of black plastic. It's our ability to engage in content via an enabling technology. So what I think all cultural and educational institutions need to master is going to market to find the partners who can collaborate with them to conceive a compelling experience. After that, you decide and you reverse engineer it to have the least amount of black plastic necessary, that's as long life as possible, as easy to operate as possible. And I've seen far too many organizations come at it the opposite way. We bought ourselves a giant touchscreen. We bought ourselves some very expensive software and computers that are going to be obsolete in 2 years. Now, what do we do with it? That's the wrong way to go about it. The right way is, what do we want our community to feel and to experience and to know coming out of it? These are augmented learning, installations. Digital projects should be augmented learning moments. And then once you've established what it is as an emotional outcome, as an educational outcome that you want people to have, then you look at, okay, what's the tools that I can bring to the table, and shape those tools, those enabling technologies, so that they are that they work sustainably with the organization's operational framework. So that might sound like a big mouthful, but not all organizations have the same capacity to operate and maintain high-tech installations. And so an experience should be designed in consideration of what the organization's real capacity is to sustain that, so that it's always as good or it gets even better with time, because that's one of the advantages of a digital installation. It can be reprogrammed, right? It doesn't have to be, it's not a poster, it's not an artifact, it's not a cabinet. It is a platform which can be refreshed. It can have new information coming in. It can have new art and creativity and messaging and new ways of interfacing with it. And you don't want it to be a white elephant that just empties out the bank account of an organization and drives its staff crazy trying to keep it working. You want it to be as easy, painless, and as advantageous as possible, as healthy, as nourishing and sustaining as possible for the host organization. And that takes a lot of thinking, but it takes the experience first, and then you come in and decide upon the technologies and all of the operation and maintenance, so that as a client, that you're, as an organization, that you are it's gonna be great, and it's just gonna get better over time.
All right, so emotion and feeling and experience first, technology second, if that.
Absolutely, you do need technology. Everything is technology, but it's not the be all and end all. And in all too many cases, people rush and they end up with a lot of technology and not much to say.
That's true. So thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us today, Amahl, and your experience. We highly appreciate you coming on our little Art Gallery Windsor YouTube show. And we look forward to our collaboration with you, Art Gallery of Windsor and Moment Factory.
Well, I can't wait to be back in Windsor. I was coming through regularly before COVID. And now that the pandemic's lightening up, I'm sure I'm not the only one who wants to get back out to the art gallery and to downtown and get back out in public and enjoy ourselves again.
Well, we look forward to having you here when you do come down.
Wonderful. Thanks, Micaela.
Thank you for your time, Amahl, and we'll talk to you later.
Anytime.